Conference. I'm number 5 on the list, and I come from Cornwall, deepest, darkest southwest of Cornwall, where our fishing's been wiped out, where our farming's being wiped out, and we haven't even got a stadium in our county where we can play first-class rugby or first-class soccer. I got up early today, and I read The Guardian, and I was annoyed because the Guardian editor, or the editorial, said, "We've got nothing to do but blame other people and blame the EU." Well, they can't have been here yesterday, can they? Because we heard about small business. We heard about how we can trade with the rest of the world. We heard lots of other stories about how our policies will be developed. This is what we face in the press. And I will remind you here that the first party political leader to come out against the war in Syria was who? Nigel Farage. He was the person brave enough to stand up on his own and say, "We will not enter a war in Syria." Thank you, Nigel. And the others followed, just as they're following now. Yeah. When I spoke at the conference in 2013, September, I warned that 2 things would follow us. One is the allegation of racism. And as I walked around here yesterday, I was so pleased to see black, brown, yellow faces, because we are not a party of white supremacists. My brother-in-law is Asian. He came over in 1967. My niece and nephew are half Asian. They're Asian British with that lovely coloured skin. But they're as Cornish as I am, even more so. They were born there. So don't let me hear any allegations of racism directed against UKIP. Thank you very much. And every attack on Nigel Farage, and they're highly personal, just proves to me, and everybody else in here and outside who supports us, the weakness of the other side's arguments. Because they can't argue with him, so they slag him off. And that's why the leader of the Labour Party and the leader of the Conservative Party refused to indulge in a debate with Nigel, because he will wipe the floor with them. I take my hat off to you, Nigel, wherever you are now, sitting having a cup of coffee or probably having interviews with the press. But even I must say, having known you for 20 years, I did not realise the range of faces that you could pull, and I have seen on the internet over the last few weeks. The result of the Wythenshawe by-election. John Bickley, thank you very much for standing. Was a tremendous vote of 18% from a standing start in a rock-solid Labour seat, where they fiddled the vote because of the way they dealt with the postal ballot. This is a system which Hitler and Stalin would have been proud of. We'll let you vote. We will let you vote before you hear the arguments. So there's no possibility of changing your mind. But let us remember here that it was Hugh Gaitskell who said, and Hugh Gaitskell was no Tory, was he? Hugh Gaitskell who said, to enter the common market would be the end of 1,000 years of British history.
I'm not going to have it.
If you listen to Margaret Thatcher's speech in 55, it was pro-EU. He took us in 72. Thatcher said, vote for the common market in 75. Thatcher passed the 86 European Single Act, and John Major passed the 92 Treaty of Maastricht, which did more than anything to pave the way for the mess we're in at the moment. So the Labour Party has a rich history in opposition until we get to Tony Blair. Tony Blair, leader of the Labour Party, followed by Gordon Brown. And I tell you this, which leader of the Labour Party was it who insulted an old lady in Rochdale? because she dared to bring up the one question which people in this country, in the homes, in the coffee bars, in the high streets, on the buses, in the trains, and in the pubs and social clubs are saying. We have a concern about untrammeled immigration from the EU, which is not controlled by our Parliament. And what did he do? He branded her a bigoted old lady. This was a Labour leader branding an old lady who dared to face him with what the real question is, or one of the real questions. And just moving on here. Last week, I'm a psychologist. I deal with people with special needs a lot. There was a man on the streets of Bournemouth who suffered from Asperger's syndrome. And his one crime was to say to a man riding a bike on a pavement, you shouldn't be riding on a pavement, you should be on the road. And what was the result of that intervention? He was killed. In 2014, a man, or 13, was killed for daring to say, you should ride a bike on a street rather than a pavement. It's an absolute disgrace. And an even bigger disgrace is the judge gave the person who murdered him only 4 years in jail. And it's likely he will get out with doing 2 years in jail for murdering a vulnerable person who has Asperger's syndrome. It is an absolute disgrace in this country in 2014 that we put up with that. And I'll tell you an even greater disgrace, that when our judiciary sentences the 2 murderers of Lee Rigby, they can't pass sentence immediately. They have to wait to see whether it's okay with the European Union, whether they can give him a whole life term. It's an absolute outrage. Now, I've got a red light flashing. What I meant to do at the beginning was put my paper over it, Gawain. I'm sorry. Been going about the Labour Party. A few months ago, Chuka Umunna, spokesperson for small businesses, tried to redefine the Treaty of Accession on Newsnight. Question time. Anybody see it? He tried to rewrite it. But I'll tell you this, me old Chuck, you were wrong. And we know you were wrong because we know the Treaty of Accession better than you. And so do other members of the Labour Party because they rushed out a statement saying, Chuck, you're wrong. Shut up about it, but you were wrong. I need to finish now, but I will say this. £55 million a day we give to the European Union. £55 million a day. The cost of repairs to the southwest is about 46 million. I tell you, I've got a really good solution. Let's take 1 day's contribution to the EU and give it to the southwest. Yeah. And that leaves a difference of about 9 million. Well, I'll tell you where we'll get that from. We'll stop building HS2, and we'll give the money to the regions. Bob. Ladies and gentlemen, you can fool all the people some of the time, and some of the people all the time. You cannot fool all the people all the time. I will say to you, in these forthcoming elections in May 2014, go out, get your vote out, so that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this country. Thank you very much. Thank you.